I've been trying to come up with an electric substitute for the 020 size Cox engine powered planes and early 049 size planes that were about a 30-inch wingspan. This is a sniffer that I've converted to electric, and I had some success, but I wanted a more powerful motor, although it might be the battery that's been the issue. I started out, I used a brushless motor that was in a Park Flyer, and I also used the radio. The receiver was lightweight and it included the ESC part of it. I used a 150 milliamp 2S battery. This pulled the plane up fairly well, but I wanted a little more power yet. I don't think it's the equivalent of a Pee-wee 020. The other issue was you couldn't set the brake and the propeller would freewheel, and it seemed like it really ruined the glide. This is the motor I was using, and I had to add a bunch of lead and clay to the nose to get it to balance. And that's been a real issue because the motor's so light. It's about half the weight of a Pee-wee 020, but if you add the battery in, if you could get the battery way up front, it would be almost the weight of the Pee-wee 020. So I got this E-flite 180 motor, which looks like it's the same motor that I had, except worse, because the shaft is just really small and it bends easily. So I got a 10 amp ESC, which is really larger than I need. 6 amp would be fine. I could do braking with this ESC, but you have to program it with a radio control transmitter. Here you see the 180 motor with the prop adapter off. So I got a couple new batteries. One's a 250 and the other's a 300. They're, heavier than what I have, but they seem to power the plane better than what I had, although what I had was probably getting old. The real problem is to get the plane to balance. So I built this cheek cowl to get the battery further ahead, just as a temporary thing. I think I'm going to have to get the motor out farther ahead and have the battery underneath it. So here's the first flight of the new setup, and it seemed to climb pretty fast. But when I cut the power, it went into a left spiral. I figured out that the wing was warped, and after this session I straightened that out. So then I tried to fly it to the right, and I had too much right. Until I get that wing straightened out, I don't think I'm going to get a good combination of climb and glide. So this flight didn't look just too bad, but it was stalling bad in the glide, and it landed in this sandy area, and I must have got some of it in my motor, and now my motor doesn't hardly run. So then I put the other motor back in and used the same mount, which ended up being a problem. So I tried flying another place. I didn't think it'd be as sandy, and the first flight didn't look just too bad, but this was reduced power. I gave it more power this time and even seemed to be going to the right. And I cut the power because I was in such a small field, and now it was stalling like crazy. So I adjusted that a little bit and made another less than full throttle flight. Didn't look just too bad. Still think I need a little bit of weight in the nose, even with that battery up in the cheek cowl. So I try another flight, and the motor came loose. I couldn't get the set screw in that mount tightened up real good, I guess, and the wire broke in the motor, so this motor's ruined now too. So I'm going to look for a whole new setup. So while I was pondering my problem, I noticed I had an 049 to Outrunner adapter mount from Retro RC, and I looked on their website and I see they have one for 020. So that's what I'm going to try next.